Okay, so today I will be talking about S3 versus EBS, which are two AWS services that deal with storing data. And once I finish with this, I will be also posting another video where I use Python and I automate an S3 service as well as I automate an EBS service. So I'll be talking about, like I said, Amazon S3 versus Amazon EBS. I'll be talking about the advantages. I'll be talking about the disadvantages. I'll be talking about the differences between the two services. I'll be also talking about some of the best practices when it comes to migration. And I'll also talk about how they can work together. So some advantages for S3. So there's like, these are the five key ones that stuck out to me. And it's scalability, high durability, cost effective, wide range of use cases, and its integration with other services. Those are, I'd say, the five main advantages to me when it comes to Amazon S3. Now, there was four disadvantages that stuck out to me. There's not too many disadvantages, but I still wanted to just talk about these. So, eventually consistent, that's one. It's performance limitations. Um, it's no native file system support. It's data transfer costs. I would say a few advantages for EBS that stuck out to me. Say there was five. Uh, Low latency. It's consistent performance. Snapshots. Dealing with disaster recovery. Easy to back up. Encryption. Dealing with the data at rest. Encryption. Dealing with security. Security is very important when it comes to these different services. Integration with EC2 instances. Its use case with EC2 and how it attaches it and its compatibility. That's a huge advantage when it comes to EBS. A few of the disadvantages that stuck out to me were its limitations and scalability, its higher cost, its availability, and its limited use case. So the differences between S3 and EBS. So with S3 and EBS, there was, I say five things. It was storage capacity, performance characteristics, use cases, pricing model, integration with other AWS services. Some best practices for migrating data. Five things that stuck out. So it's like you determine the use case. So understanding, with S3, static data is one of the best things to use with S3. With EBS, it's more so dynamic data. Evaluating the data size and transfer methods and understanding the different transfer methods, like with AWS Snowball and Direct Connect and S3 transfer acceleration. Leveraging AWS Storage Gateway, which is a hybrid storage architecture. The use of EBS snapshots, and the ability to test and validate. making sure that the data integrity and the performance before switching. So how does S3 and EBS work together? How can they work together? Well, there's a five that stick out when it comes with backup and recovery, big data analytics, hybrid storage architecture, cross-region replication, lifecycle policy. And, backup recovery, dealing with storing EBS snapshots in S3, which is how they can work together, and snapshots deal with disaster recovery. With big data analytics, the use of S3 as a data lake for processing data on EC2 instances with EBS volumes. With hybrid storage, the usage of storage gateways to integrate on-premise storage with S3 and EBS. Cross-region replication, the ability to replicate data between regions using S3 and EBS. Lifecycle policies, move infrequently, access data. So data that you don't use as much, you can just move it between different lifecycle policies like Glacier, like infrequent access, and other types, and that can also help reduce costs. So, talk about cost optimization strategies. I'd say there's five key ones where you analyze the usage patterns, the S3 storage classes, the EBS volume types, the data lifecycle management, and to delete unused resources. These are five key things that can help when it comes to cost optimization strategies when it comes to EBS and S3. So, when you're analyzing usage patterns, you're monitoring how much you use the data. Is it you're using it very often, or you're not using it as much? And from that, you can use that life cycle method that we talked about, or talk about as we're using storage classes with the appropriate class for cost optimization, such as the one zone infrequent access with S3 intelligent tiering, as well as S3 Glacier, just those different things. And then different volume types, because some volume types have a higher cost than other volume types, and different usages with those volume types. And then if you're not using some of this data, deleting it can also save a lot of money, and it's huge when it comes to cost optimization. Now, one important thing, a very important thing with a lot of these services deals with security and best practices. So, security best practices, there's five main things: data encryption, access control, monitoring, versioning, and updating, sharing permissions. Data encryption, you can use the server-side encryption for S3 and EBS. You have other types of server-side encryptions that you can use, as well as key management services and etc. With access control, it's like when you decide to use IAM policies, you can use IAM policies to restrict different accesses to resources. And one of those best practices is the granting the least privilege to uh, the people that it's delegated to with the IAM policy. And then with monitoring, utilizing AWS CloudTrail, which is a powerful service where you can use this when it comes to auditing and monitoring with AWS, Amazon CloudWatch. Both of them together can help you audit and monitor different things that happen, like, say deleted passwords, or like which organization um, messed up with certain accounts. That's where um, AWS CloudTrail and Amazon CloudWatch is useful. And then versioning is very huge because when you enable versioning, it's in S3, it helps prevent data loss. And then when you update, sharing permissions regularly, um, it updates the access permissions. Some additional resources to look at be AWS documentation, AWS well architected framework, AWS training and certification, AWS white papers, AWS support. And I'd say in conclusion, Amazon S3 and EBS have distinct advantages and disadvantages. Choosing the right service depends on the specific use case and performance requirements, as well as following best practices to ensure successful data migration. Leveraging both services to optimize cost, performance, and durability. Thank you. That is what I'll conclude with. I'll also um, create S3 service using Python, Boto 3, and an EBS snapshot using Python and Boto 3. And so you can see hands-on how it works.